concerning with Darnell said?
Nothing long term.
Do you think you'll get any of those pup guys back, in the next week or so? Any chance, or do you think they're going to be there for the long haul, maybe?
No, we'll get one guy back today, Keyshawn Nixon.
Matt, is Ramsey's ankle just a recurring thing from the same ankle that kept him out all last year?
Yeah, he'll be back out there today.
You mentioned after family night that you guys maybe weren't in as good a shape as you thought you would be. I guess you still think that after watching on film, and if you do think that, how do you get that rectified while balancing the fresh legs?
Yeah, that's always the trick in training camp. I think that there are some guys where they need to be, and then there's a few guys that aren't. So that's just part about being a professional. If you're not getting the work in that you need to in practice to get in football shape, then you got to do some extra on your own. And I know our strength staff is monitoring those guys pretty closely, and so you'll probably see some of those guys working after practice a little bit more.
Is there some things you saw Friday night on tape about the progress of this young offensive line? Is it technique? Is it decisions that they have to make against what's now a defensive front that's in their prime right now?
Sure, I think it's all of the above. I think there's definitely there were some mental mistakes, there were some technique errors, just some lack of communication amongst the front. And, they are going against a pretty salty group. So I think it's for the betterment of our offensive line, but certainly we're nowhere near where we want to be or need to be.
Is there something to be said about maybe putting a little too much juice into warm-ups, and that's why you guys kind of exerted out a little earlier? What'd you kind of see with that?
No, I don't think the warm-ups were that exhausting, in my opinion. I think that, we might want to look at how we're doing some things in that setting from some of our coverage on special teams. I think that kind of got the betterment of some of our players, but, maybe doing a little less and incorporating more teams periods throughout the course of practice. Just in that setting, because those guys it is a more competitive setting when you have all the fans, and not that it necessarily should be or shouldn't be, but I think that it has that effect on our guys.
Matt, does the week shift at all in terms of how you'll approach it because it's the first game, or do you not do that until later in camp where you make it like a regular season week?
Yeah, not quite yet. And quite frankly, we were gonna we intended to go out there and practice today and have it like a normal practice. I just thought with kind of how we came out of family night and where we are right now, and then the conditions out there really had no bearing on the decision. The decision was made yesterday in terms of it's going to be a much lighter practice today.
Why is that? Why'd you make that decision?
Just because I felt like we needed probably another day to recover, and then we'll get 3 good days in, and then we'll have a walkthrough, and then we'll go to San Francisco after that walkthrough and play a game.
Matt, what else? I know it's still a practice like any other, but what else jumped off the tape to you from family night, good or not so good?
Well, how long do we have? You could really go through each position group, and there was a lot of good things, and then there's a lot of things to learn from and get better at. And I think one of the things that, at least from my perspective, is that football is an imperfect game, and guys are going to make mistakes. But how do you balance that with making sure that you're just giving your max effort all the time? And there were some plays that we pointed out where technically maybe somebody wasn't doing the right thing, but they were going at 100 miles an hour and made a play. So certainly it's just a balancing act of that, and we want guys to really go for it and not be afraid of making a mistake, and because I just don't think you can ever reach your full potential if you're playing with a governor on. You've got to go for it.
Jumping off that a little bit, you mentioned several times throughout training camp that you want this team to be able to win in multiple ways. Assessing your team through 9 practices, do you think you see a team that can win multiple ways, and what's the value of that in this league?
Well, that is the value, right? Every week can be a little bit different dependent upon your matchups, who you're playing, and you got to be able to find different ways to win. But whether it's on offense, defense, special teams, whatever it may be, but yeah, I think it's too early to tell right now. I mean, we haven't even played a preseason game, and we're continuing to grow together and come together as a team, and that is one of the emphasis of training camp.
Matt, last year, a couple times you had mentioned wanting Jordan to let it rip, to use your phrase. Have you seen him doing that a little bit more this year? It seems like he gets to the top of his drop and does seem to just let it go.
Yeah, I think he's much more in rhythm. I think there's more decisiveness. I think you see it in his footwork, and he's not getting like what I call stuck at the top of the drop where both feet are hitting at the same time and he's just kind of sitting there. It just looks more rhythmical, looks more fluid, and I think it's translated in his play. And I think he's definitely thrown the ball pretty accurately and has made pretty good decisions. And I think, Tom and Connor Lewis have done a hell of a job with him. I think Aaron's been instrumental in his development as well, and just the conversations that go on in the room. And you got to give Jordan a lot of credit for taking the drill work to team, and hopefully we can take the practice to the games.
There's like always benchmarks. Okay, like you said, Monday he had his best practice, then he had maybe his best week. Has he had his best camp as a whole?
Yeah, but again, what are we at 9 practices or whatever? So there's still a lot in front of us. There's still a lot to improve upon, and we hope he continues to take those steps. And I know he's working his tail off each and every day.
We talked after family night about the throw to Samori, and that was a bang play. Maybe he gets it, maybe he doesn't. He said in the locker room afterward that he had a throw against Detroit in the last game. I'm guessing he's talking about the downfield throw to EQ in the last minute. Can you see him being a lot different than you see him on that play? Like when you watch him without being live, can you tell that has been an advancement, or is it still too early to say?
Yeah, I think, he's done a great job of keeping his eyes down the field, and there's been a lot of pressure around him. It's been a little leaky up front, and but he's doing a good job of being able to manage that and really playing as real as you can in those situations where he's not just a sitting duck in there. He's trying to move and get out of the way or escape the pocket or throw the ball away. So he truly is playing the play, which I think is an improvement from maybe his first 2 years.
And do you think that was hard for him initially? The deck was kind of stacked against him a little bit, right, with the off-season of 2020 and no preseason games and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think that was hard on all the quarterbacks, or not even quarterbacks, just all young players through that year, just not to, have, there's nothing like repetition, and to not have those was not in the best interest of a young player coming out that year.
With Keyshawn, going back to him, he spent the entire offseason as that number 4 corner. What did you like about what you saw out during those 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, just a guy that he has a skill set to play the position, and he's a versatile enough guy where he can kick inside and play nickel, and then he gives you a lot of value on special teams as well. So he's a guy that we're excited to get back, and hopefully he can pick up where he left off.
You said you're going to be a little light on running backs. How do you think B.J. Baylor ran the other night?
How did he do?
Yeah.
I thought he ran pretty well, and we'll get a long look at those guys throughout the course of the preseason, both those guys, and hopefully we get Patrick Taylor back out there and let those guys carry the load throughout the course of the preseason.
Matt, what do you like best about what you've seen so far from the 2 first-round picks, Walker and Wyatt, and what they're bringing to your defense at this point?
Well, they're both obviously very athletic, and I think you see some splash plays throughout the course of practices, but I think just the consistency at which they're doing those and playing their positions, I think, is improving every day, and that's what you expect out of a young player. There's a lot that they don't know initially, but I think they've been KO and Jerry Montgomery have done a great job with both of those guys and kind of getting them coached up and up to speed. And we look for those guys to be big contributors on our defense.
And outside linebacker, who stood out so far behind Preston and Rashawn? That's a wide open competition, it seems like.
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell right now. I don't think it's really separated itself quite yet, and that's why I'm looking forward to these preseason games to let those other guys go out there and compete for 3, 4, and 5.
More, please.
Matt, is tight end another position kind of like that, where you need these preseason games? You don't have Bobby, you know, Tyler's done some good things, but is pretty inexperienced still, and I feel like that position's pretty important in what you guys do offensively. Where do you kind of think that group is going into the preseason games?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great learning experience for those guys to get all those reps, and so because Bobby won't play in the preseason, we're not going to play Mercedes much at all, if at all, in the preseason. So it's going to be great for those guys to get all those reps.
I know that Daniel Levitt was brought in mainly for special teams, but how much is he pushing for one of those backup safety spots as well?
I think that's another position that is kind of up in the air. I mean, outside of Smash and Savage, the third, fourth, fifth safety spots are kind of up for grabs. So it's going to be some great competition throughout the course of the preseason, and that's why we're so excited to get to San Francisco this week. And it'll be a great test for all our players.